Hi, welcome to Garden Friends. I'm Andrea here in Tampa, Florida. It's April, everything is blooming, new life everywhere, and that includes my weeds. So I recently started considering my weeds to be more like wildflowers. And instead of fighting them and getting frustrated when they've taken over, I'm accepting them in the garden and let them have their place. And I've actually been learning a little bit more about them. And so today's video is a little longer than what I normally shoot, but I found about 10 or 11 different weeds that are pretty common in my yard. I know they're pretty common in other people's yards, and I wanted to talk about the different benefits and how I'm welcoming them to my yard as wildflowers instead of weeds.
This tall weed right here is not much to look at the moment. Normally it would be covered in lavender flowers. I know that you've seen it if you've been anywhere in Florida and driven along the highways. It's called toadflax, and it's usually covered in these lavender flowers. They get tall. When I was a kid, we just had oodles of it growing in the yard and in the ditches. I used to pull it up and give it to my mother when I was little. They were a very pretty little flower. It's also the host plant for the common buckeye butterfly.
Now, a wildflower that I've got in abundance in my yard is purslane. You can see it here with the tiny little yellow flowers. Now, I understand that every bit of this plant is edible and it's supposed to be very high in nutrients. There's actually some articles on WebMD about eating it and that it is good for you. I've got a pink variety over here. It's the only two colors that I have ever seen in my yard growing wild. Several years ago, I actually bought some in the store and it had different colors. I had some orange, I had some yellow. It was larger flowers and I had them in hanging baskets. Now here is a weed or wildflower called peppergrass. It has been very prolific. For the last 6 months, I've been seeing it all over the yard. It's a member of the mustard family, and from what I've read online, totally edible. And well, Yoshi likes to eat weeds too, so I'll kind of take his lead. If he's eating it, I guess it's not toxic. But this is peppergrass.
This particular wildflower is whitehead broom, and it is a favorite nectar source for a particular wasp. I can't remember the name of the wasp, but the wasp is important because it preys on mole crickets.
Now, here's a wildflower. He is called common wireweed. Why is it called wireweed? Well, because these stems are hard. They are, you could almost consider them wires. They don't want to pull up out of the ground very easily. You really have to wet them if you are trying to pull them up. It makes a very nice little yellow flower. And when I've got them in bloom, I get a lot of little butterflies all over them, all those low-flying pollinators. They really like them. It's almost like a little bitty buttercup. Now that clover-looking flower or plant at the base of my jatropha is wood sorrel. It's edible. I haven't eaten it yet, but apparently those sorrels are something that people forage for. It's on the list of things to try. And I like to see it. It's not a clover, it just looks like one, but you never know, you might find a leprechaun under there somewhere, or a dog, you never know.
Here's another wildflower. His name is Pusley, and I just learned his name. It's not a very pretty name, but it does make a pretty little delicate white flower. And I've seen a lot of my lower flying butterflies, the smaller ones, they seem to like it. So the dogs don't trample it too much. It doesn't mind some drought. It's pretty easy to grow. After all, it is a weed. And I've decided that it doesn't look too bad here next to my pavers. So we're going to leave it.
Here's a weed that we're all familiar with. It's cudweed. This here blowing in the wind. Not a very pretty name, not a very pretty flower, but it's essential for the painted lady butterfly. That's its preferred host plant. Now here's another wildflower that we are all very, very familiar with. It is called butterfly needles. It's also got about 4 or 5 other names that I've seen it referred to. Um, Basically, it's got those little daisy flowers, and it's got those needles that stick to your socks and your shoes and your clothes and your dogs and anything else that it touches. It's very prolific. It's actually not that unattractive when you get them blooming. It's sometimes out of place when it pops up in the center of my yard. But other than that, I can see where it's a good source of nectar for all of those pollinators, all those little bugs buzzing around. And as long as I don't have to walk through it regularly and get those needles on my socks, I'm happy to just let it be. Well, thanks for sticking with me. That was by no means an exhaustive list of all of the wildflowers that are in my yard. It's just the ones that are most common and I think uh, maybe the prettiest. So happy gardening. Thank you for watching and have a great day.